Hey folks, it's Ryan Adams here from naturalweightlossmastery.com, and in this video I'd like to walk you through how to navigate this very testing Christmas and holiday season whilst not completely sabotaging your good health and weight loss results this year. I think this video, or the timing of this video rather, is probably quite apt for many of you as well, because it's Thanksgiving in I think less than a week's time now at the time of me recording this. And so there's going to be a lot of overlap in what we discuss. So if you're worried about Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever it is, any celebration for you this year, religious or not, stay tuned. I've got you covered. So the first thing I'll say on this, if I was to make this very simplistic, I think there's two main ways of approaching the festive period. Number one, you eat cleanly. You eat how you ordinarily would, what I hope you typically eat anyway, which is a well-balanced, whole foods, plant-based diet, full of whole grains, fruits, veggies, legumes such as beans, peas, and lentils, nuts and seeds too, of course, tubers as well, like our potato, sweet potato, and yams. They're fairly festive, aren't they? You eat how you ordinarily would. Let's be honest about this, let's not kid ourselves. This is the ideal thing to do, isn't it? From a health and a weight loss perspective, this is the ideal way to approach this. This is what I would this is what I would say is optimal. There's no kidding ourselves about it. I can't wriggle out of this one. That is the best case scenario from a health and a weight loss perspective. Now, is it necessarily the practical thing to do? Is it necessary? Well, we'll come on to that now, because my second one here is that you very much approach Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever the celebration is in question. You very much approach it with this mindset of, okay, today is going to be, or this meal is going to be a one-off. I won't let it stick. I won't let this turn into what it used to turn into for me in the past. I'm going to nip it in the bud after, but I'm going to allow myself to be less than perfect today. And that's one way you can approach this as well. Which is right? Which is wrong? Well, it depends. It depends on the person in question. It depends on the scenario. What I'll talk about here is what is working with my clients and how my clients are approaching this, because I think there's some good insights here. Now, the vast majority of my clients, the approach we're taking with this is that they're going to be slightly less than perfect on these days, but actually, for the most part, their diet is going to be very much a reflection of what they ordinarily would do anyway. So maybe it's the case that with one client right now, they're sending me a bunch of recipes, and I'm actually amending, little things here and there with the recipes to make them a bit cleaner. So they've found all sorts of sort of vegan Christmas alternatives. We've done a bit of jiggery pokery there, and we've made things a lot better from a weight loss and a health perspective. However, we're allowing them, the occasional slice of cake, for instance, or something like that. It's going to be slightly less than perfect. Maybe there's a meal there that might have a bit of oil in it, but we're cleaning up things so the damage is limited. I often speak to my clients, they'll know this if any of my clients are watching now, about damage limitation. Okay, as soon as these celebrations come up, or as soon as you go out to eat, you're not in full control. It might not be perfect, but you're not going to let yourself go wild by any means. And the great thing is, with these clients in question, they've already been working with me for some time. There's a great degree of trust there, as in, I hope they have trust for me too, of course, but a great degree of trust from my perspective as well for that client, in the sense that I know, because they've been with me quite some time, I am very confident that they've, quote unquote, turned a corner. And so we can trust that client to have a bit more freedom and then nip it in the bud, and it won't turn into some crazy thing, because that's what so often happens, especially with something like Christmas. Maybe it starts on the 23rd or the 24th, and then by the time New Year's rolls around, they've gained a couple of pounds and they've not had one good day of eating in that period from just prior to Christmas right the way through until early January, perhaps. And that's absolutely disaster. It's something many of you know. It's something that I absolutely know from experience too. So I think that's it. With the clients that really trust themselves, and I trust them, and they've proven that they really have turned a corner, and the taste buds have started to change, and their habits are, have completely evolved, and in a sense they have transformed, as cheesy as that sounds, and they are a new person with this weight loss stuff. And they have really shown that over a couple of weeks, or, well, more than a couple of weeks, but a couple of months working with me. I give them that freedom, okay? Or I give them the freedom to, have a bit of cake here and there and whatnot, okay? And we know that they'll be back on track from the next meal the next day, however it works out for them, depending on the celebration in question, okay? I actually still do have a handful of clients, it's not a majority, but a handful of clients who are quite new to this way of eating, or they're new to working with me, or they have a specific problem, perhaps something like binging, or they've had a binging issue in the past. And so definitely our conclusion on how to approach Thanksgiving or Christmas, both of us, both myself and the client, has been, you have to ride this one out. You have to go cleanly throughout this. You sadly have to be that person that turns up to your friend or family's house with, that Tupperware container of your food whilst everyone else eats the other stuff, or you just pick and choose the vegetables and you bring your own nut roast or something like that. That is how they've approached it, and I would say that's a handful of my clients right now. So it's a minority, but not a tiny one by any means. I don't work with that many people at any one time, as you could probably imagine. That would be a bit too much. So those are the two simple approaches, folks. You either, I don't want to call the day a write-off, but, approach number 2 here is that, you allow yourself to be a bit less than perfect on this day, but that you really trust and know that you can nip it in the bud and it's not going to turn into something frequent. Or option A, if you don't trust yourself so much at this stage, or you're new to this way of eating, I think sometimes you do have to be very sacrificial with this, okay? And sometimes you do have to keep it clean for your long-term benefit. So what I would suggest to you is that, whilst I don't want you to use this as an excuse to have a bunch of junk food, what I would suggest to you is that forget the short term here. Forget what happens on the day itself. Forget what the scale looks like potentially the next day, because there'll be perhaps lots of water retention too there, of course. So we can't just say that this is fat gain, what you see on the scale the next day after maybe a less than ideal day. A lot of people freak out about that. But forget about the short term for a second. Think about how this day or this celebration or this couple of day period will actually affect you over the long term. That's the way to approach this. The mistake everyone makes is they think this one day or this one meal is really going to, excuse my language, but screw up their health and weight loss results. That's the wrong way to frame this to folks. What I would like to really change, what I would like to reframe here really is, and what I would like to leave with you instead is that it's not one meal or it's not one day that's going to affect your weight loss results or your health results for that matter. It's a series of actions over time. It's your quote-unquote body of work, so to speak. So thinking that one meal or one day is really going to mess things up, it's absolutely not. The scale might shoot up the next day, but I promise you there'll be a lot of water retention there too, of course, and it will quickly drop off over the next couple of days. I'm not saying you won't gain fat from that, but often the scale can be misleading the following day after you maybe have a bit of junk food, or especially foods that are rich in sodium, for instance, as well. Let's say savoury junk food. That would be a good example. So, and sweet junk food too actually can contain a lot of sodium too. So yeah, I think that's probably worth remembering as well. Like, think about the long term. Think about how this day or this celebration or this meal will affect you in the long term. And if you can honestly say to yourself, you know what, it's not going to affect the long term. I'm going to have this one day. I'm going to, quote unquote, let my hair down, so to speak, and then I'll get back on track, and I know I can do that because I've really changed with this now, then fair enough. That might well be the approach that you consider. I'm not telling you what to do. That might be the approach to consider. If you think, you know what, I'm new to this, I'm a bit worried that one bad thing will really set me off, then you've got your answer there too, of course. Keep it clean. It will be tough. You'll get pushback. You'll get pressure. You need to bring your little Tupperware container, but I think that's the way to go. If you are the latter there, if you are in that second category where you do deem that you need to keep it clean this Christmas, check out the link below. I haven't put lots of recipes there, excuse me. I've put a link to some forks over knives recipes. Their stuff is very much Ryan Adams approved. For Thanksgiving, for Christmas, you'll see a couple of links there. So lots of meal ideas, lots of alternatives that you can think about preparing for you, your family. Whether you bring them or not, that's up to you. One little tip I do have, and I think this goes to all social occasions, things like dinner parties. If you don't want to feel rude to the guest or awkward, let them know ahead of time that you're really focused on your health and weight loss right now and you're going to bring your own stuff. I think that's really key. And when you do bring your own stuff, make sure there's extra. Make sure there's a decent surplus so that other people can try as well. It can be quite rude if you just turn up with your own stuff and don't offer anyone anything, even though they're offering you their food. Yeah, okay, technically you're saying no, but I think in terms of politeness, I think that goes a long way. So perhaps if you are making your own nut roast, for instance, you bring a bunch, or you say to the host, listen, I'm going meat-free this year, or this is my first meat-free Thanksgiving. I'm really serious about it. I hope you don't take offense to this, but I'm going to bring a nut roast. But listen, I'm going to make a delicious nut roast, and anyone can have some. I'm going to bring a decent portion as well, so anyone is welcome to try some. I think that's a way to go. So contact the host, ahead of time, and bring surplus. And make it nice. You don't have to just have your typical rice and beans. That's a good tip as well. You can keep this healthy, whole food, plant-based, and you can have a bit of fun with this as well, okay? So if you are in group number 1, as I mentioned earlier, you can make, something new, something interesting, tacos, burgers. It can be festive. It doesn't have to be, but you can make something maybe a bit different that you don't usually have, for instance, and you can bring that with you, okay? I'm trying to think of what some of my clients are doing right now. I can't think off the top of my head, but I know one of them's just doing a big curry, actually. I know one of them's doing a big tofu curry, so that might be something as well. Something, it can be themed, or it can be something slightly different. Bring that along, but do something special for you so that you're still having something different on the day, but it ticks every box from a health and weight loss perspective. Or, again, if you prefer to be in group number 2, have a bit of cake, but don't let yourself get out of control. Damage limitation, as I say, manage it, and I hope that you've truly changed as a person. So when you do have that bit of cake, it doesn't do things for you like it did in the past. And really, there's going to be a lot of you that ask, Ryan, how will you approach it? I'm going to be in the second category, frankly, folks. One, of course, I'm not as neurotic about my weight loss goals right now because I'm just in weight maintenance phase and have been for several years now, so I'm really not fussed. So for me, I can quote unquote get away with it. That's not to indicate that I should get away with it. I'm not going to lie and say this is the ideal thing to do from a weight loss a health perspective. I can get away with it from a weight management perspective because I'm where I'm at now and I'm happy with that. But from a health perspective, it's not ideal. But yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of cake. I'm going to have my what I've done for the last few years with my family, which is just a usual sort of British type Christmas dinner. It'll be the same for many of you in the West, but a British Christmas dinner with all the veggies and whatnot, some nice vegan gravy, and but instead of the meat, I'm going to have some nut roast. So actually that meal is extremely clean in itself. I perhaps will eat a large portion of it, maybe larger than I ordinarily would, so that's not quite so good. But yeah, I'll have a bit of cake after that too, and I might have something later on in the evening that isn't as ideal as well. But by no means will it be anything wild, by no means what it'll have been in the past. And 26th, 27th, I'll just be eating normally again, okay? There might be the occasional vegan mince pie here and there, but really it will be so controlled compared to what it is in the past. And you know what? I say controlled, there's no effort, there's no difficulty in me doing that nowadays. It's very much second nature, and I hope you're at that stage too. If you are at that stage, that's why I recommend maybe considering, option number 2 with this and just being a little bit less than perfect, because you know that you can be, and you know you can trust yourself to do that. So yeah, what I'm doing is not what I do here. That's not necessarily my recommendation to you, just letting you know what I'm doing and unpacking. I know it's been a long video here, but just unpacking the ins and outs of this so that you have all the information and just sharing all my insight on it. So I think that's key. And yeah, for me, I'll be back on track. I'll be ideal from the 26th, 27th again. But yeah, I'll hold my hands up and say I'll be less than perfect. But yeah, that's very much my approach. So yeah, I'm not telling you what to do unless you're one of my clients, and I will be a little more instructive in this manner. That's just what I'm doing. But hopefully I've shared some advice on this. So check out those recipes down below from Forks Over Knives. You can always check out Vegan Winter Warmers as well, which is you can guess it's my vegan winter cookbook, so you can check that out down below. Everything there is health and weight loss friendly, of course, so you can check that out for more info. I'm going on and on and on. Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas to those of you. You might be watching this ahead of time, so that's probably a bit premature for me to say. But yeah, take care anyway. Hope you found this useful.